Welcome to The Briefcase and the Beat.
Welcome to The Briefcase and the Beat with attorney Jason Marker, founder of Marker Law in Naperville, Illinois. For more than 25 years, Jason has fought for injured workers across Illinois while building a brand that blends music, real stories, and conversations around the legal issues that impact everyday people. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're talking about the great Lollapalooza in Chicago and what happens when a great night out takes a serious turn. Jason, my man, welcome.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Lollapalooza, man. I think like 91 was like the first one, but it wasn't in Chicago, right? Till like 2000, 2001 or something like that?
Yeah, 100%. 1991 was the first one. They ran it for a few years. It used to be a touring event and then took a little hiatus, I think in 97. And then it got brought back in 2005 by the Jane's Addiction lead singer. And he's been running it ever since, man.
Crazy. But since this is our first episode and this is kind of musical theme, though, can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and where your love of music first started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Jason Marker, owner of Marker Law, which is a law firm here in the Chicago suburbs of Naperville, Illinois. I've spent more than 25 years helping injured people, that is, folks that are in either auto, truck, motorcycle, bike, pedestrian, or even work injuries, folks that are just really hurt and need help. But long before I was a lawyer, Evan, I was just a music fan, probably just like you. And music's always been a part of my life. I started playing drums actually in high school after a neighbor friend of mine let me, mess around a lot in his basement with his set. I later learned some guitar in college and still play both today. So I love music. I even did some DJing back in my college years at fraternity parties and such. I didn't learn how to use a turntable and spin records, but I did kind of learn enough where we would do CDs and just mix them with faders and lights and panels and stuff like that. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. The one fortunate thing about having older parents and being a little older is teaching us what like real music was, you know what I mean? From the 60s, 70s and the 80s and things like that. So I kind of grew up with like the Eagles and things like that. So like Eagles and Foreigner and like Journey and like Hall & Oates, like that's, and like I like Depeche Mode and Duran Duran. So like I have this weird eclectic flavor. So when people first like profile me, they're like, who's your favorite rapper? And I'm like, listen, we gotta talk about the Eagles before we talk about any of that.
Hey, no, I feel you, man. I like about every genre of music too. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s mainly, right? So literally it was such a great time where so much music was coming out. I mean, you had rap starting to come out. You had, pop and rock was amazing. Then you had the grunge scene in the early 90s. I mean, It was just an amazing time for music, which I think is what really fueled my passion, you bet.
So Jason, we kind of started talking about it in the very beginning about Lollapalooza, the kind of history behind it, but why has it become such a major event in Chicago?
So Lollapalooza, as we said, it started off as this festival in 91, but then it started in Chicago. And the fact that it started in Chicago has just become, synonymous with Lolla now is just amazing. I mean, you've got Grant Park here. It's just an amazing venue to watch a show. What really separates it here, I think that way, is that it's a huge, huge area, right? In Chicago, you've got all kinds of room around Grant Park where you used to have Taste of Chicago. You've got the Air and Water Show and all that. And now Lollapalooza's been there for about the last 20 years. It's just been a huge impact to the city and just a huge, great place to watch shows.
So how much work goes into putting together an event as big as Lollapalooza? I just always think about Wayne's World 2 when I was a kid, when they were watching, like when they was doing Wayne Stock and all the permits and all the things that it took to put an event on. So how much work does go into putting together an event that large?
So a ton of work goes into this, Evan. I mean, you have over 400,000 people mostly attending these events in Chicago. So you're talking about tons of time, tons of effort to make sure, the venue is set up. You've got crowd control, all of that stuff. You're talking about multiple stages, hundreds of artists, sound engineers, lighting crews. I mean, security teams, police, fire, EMT, food vendors, the fencing, the generators, the temporary roads, sanitation. I mean, all that stuff, right? Every detail's got to be coordinated because you have nearly all those 400,000 people entering every day, leaving every day, and just a single mistake could be a huge safety issue, right?
So this might be a silly question though, Jason, but I got to ask, you had to tell me you've been to Lollapalooza, and what was it like if you went, and how was it?
Yeah, absolutely, Evan. I mean, I've been to many shows. Lolla's like one of my favorite things to go to, and I can't say now at my age that I'm going to everyone, right? Because I'm not a youngster, but my favorite years were probably back when I was younger when they were doing all the touring shows. My favorite show all time was the 1992 show. I went to see the show in Alpine Valley. It's where literally Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Red Hot Chili
Yep.
Peppers, Ice Cube, Ministry. These guys were all first coming out, and it was a legendary show. I mean, Eddie Vedder climbed the rafters. I can tell you that story too. Just amazing show.
What makes a festival like Lollapalooza different from just going to a regular concert? You hear about concerts, you hear about festivals, you hear about music festivals, but what separates Lollapalooza?
So one word really separates it, and that's choice, Evan. You know, at a regular concert, you're there to see one artist, right? At Lollapalooza, you can see 6, 7, 8, 9 bands all in one day, right? You're working between multiple stages. You can make all these decisions on who you want to watch. You're grabbing food, you're meeting friends, discovering new artists. So that's really the kicker with it. And the energy is just different because I think the crowd is constantly moving, maybe from, one stage to the next. So from a legal perspective, also, that's what makes festivals a little bit more complicated, right? Moving more people around means more opportunity for accidents and stuff to happen compared to just a single show.
But what kind of things can go wrong when you have that many people gathering in one place?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, believe it or not, you're going to have all kinds of stuff go wrong. You hope nothing does. And the good news is in Chicago, they haven't had any kind of major issues. But people can trip over uneven ground. I mean, that's just an easy one. Sometimes spills or, people get sloppy and maybe crowd surges and they start banging into each other, even punching people, whatever. But beyond that, you can have equipment failure. You can have temporary structures that maybe collapse or fall. Weather can be a huge issue and a factor. People can get dehydrated, suffer heat exhaustion. So, and then you've got security situations that can develop. So all these kind of things can happen. And sometimes simply one person falling, it creates a domino effect, and then there's so much to deal with.
So Jason, if someone gets hurt at an event like this, what should they do right away in that moment? Because I know there's a lot of things going on, and it's auditory sensations and things like that. But there's a moment of injury. But what should they do?
First, get medical attention. I mean, that's the first thing you've got to do. But nothing's more important than your health. Second, report what happened before you leave if you're able to. I mean, that's hugely important. Third, take pictures, videos of the area. Try to give an idea of what you remember. Get names of folks if they were around who saw the same things you did. Save your ticket. Don't assume that someone else is going to document everything just because, you didn't, right? So you've really got to focus on doing all of that. Those videos, those pictures, that information you have is the best evidence later.
If someone gets injured at a concert or a festival, how do you figure out who may actually be responsible? Lollapalooza, you say, have 400,000 people at one time, so how do you nail that down?
Yeah, so this is where the lawyers start asking questions, right? But essentially what we're going to look at is, was there a dangerous condition? And what we're saying is, did someone know about it, or should they have known about it? Should they have fixed it? Should they have done a better job to control something? Who hired the security? We're going to get into all kinds of questions about who's responsible for what, who is responsible for maintenance. Sometimes what looks like one simple incident involves many contracts between 10 or 15 companies, right? So you dig into all that stuff, and that's why these cases take investigation. Before anyone can really say who's legally responsible, we've got to look into all of that stuff.
Can multiple people or companies end up being responsible when someone gets hurt at a big event like this?
Yeah, absolutely. The festival organizer may have responsibilities, of course, right? They're the ones that put the whole thing together, but the property owner is also going to be responsible. A security company could be responsible. They may have contracted with the event to provide security, which requires them to do certain things, perhaps checks, when people come in and out, and if they miss stuff, they could be responsible. You could have a cleaning contractor. I mean, cleaners got a contract with the event to clean up each night after the shows, right? And maybe they fail to clean properly, and there's either mats or chairs or something, and they're defective and someone gets hurt on those. A staging company, the companies that are hired to actually put up the lights in the stages. A lot of times maybe a piece of equipment is faulty and fails, so those guys could be responsible. Even a food vendor, it's possible that something happens with, whatever food they're selling, and you've got some case against a food vendor randomly. So the law allows responsibility to be shared between different companies when certain facts arise, okay? So that's why you can have multiple companies that are responsible for one event and why a thorough investigation is needed.
So can you tell us about a case that shows what can happen when someone gets seriously hurt at a crowded event like Lollapalooza?
So one of the most well-known examples isn't actually from Lollapalooza. Like I said, they've done a good job in Chicago, but it's that Astroworld Festival tragedy in Houston in 2021. You remember that one?
Travis Scott.
Yeah, so during that crowd surge, 100 people or so lost their lives, and injuries led to huge litigation involving promoters, organizers, security planning, crowd management, emergency response, many other issues. So that's probably the biggest example, but it's a heartbreaking reminder that crowd safety isn't just about having enough security guards. It's really about planning and communication, venue design, emergency access, and making safety the priority for everybody involved. At the end of the day, all we want is the same thing, is to see great music and make great memories, right? And make it home safely.
So before we kind of wrap things up and put a nice little bow on this thing, I wanted to get a kind of a story from you. Did you have a client or that ever got hurt, that you personally maybe represented in one of these festivals?
Yeah, thanks for asking of it. I mean, I've had so many kinds of cases. I have not had a client that got hurt directly at Lollapalooza, but I have certainly represented folks that have been in bar fights, bar brawls, which not to say that people are hitting each other at Lollapalooza, but you can get some rowdy folks sometimes. And that gentleman that we represented, at a bar, somebody busted his face pretty good, had some orbital bone fractures. And in that kind of a case, you can go certainly after the person that hit you. That's just a direct claim against the other person. We call that an assault, right? But sometimes you can also even go after the bar or the owner of the establishment if they maybe overserved that guy and that was the reason and they knew it and they didn't have security or didn't do anything about it, right? So in the case that I had, we checked into all of those facts. It didn't turn out that that was really going to be factually a way to go after doing our investigation, so we couldn't sue anybody else other than the person that hit him, but that certainly can be what happens many times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good way to end things. Jason, thank you for your time.
You bet.
And if you'd like to learn more about Jason and the work his team does for injured workers and injury victims across Illinois, visit marker-law.com. They always offer a free consultation, and you can call them at 331-INJURED. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like, subscribe to the show, and leave a review if you found this episode enjoyable or helpful, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.